Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, live show number 221, post-Halloween, November 1st. Oops, I got an echo. Sorry, I changed my mind. We're simulcasting, as always, on Facebook Live and also on LinkedIn Live, now that we have that option, as also well as Periscope and YouTube. So we are literally everywhere. As I change over some of the settings to make sure that we do not have that come back up again. I welcome you all to the, now we're in the fall season, although if you live in Florida. Hey, Mr. Tim Pitter, how are you, sir? Oh, I do not hear you, which is odd. Oh, first word, 2 syllables sounds like. No.
I forgot that I had to turn on the microphone in the thing.
Welcome. Good to see you again.
Good to be seen again.
How was your Halloween?
Exceedingly quiet. We live on a very private piece of property, and so in the 17 years, almost 18 years we've lived here, I think we have gotten a grand total of 2 trick-or-treaters.
Oh, see, well, I mean, we live in a condo, so they don't come by us anymore here. But when I lived in Dallas, we decided to, the neighborhood, since we're on a cul-de-sac, instead of having all the kids go to the houses individually, we all decided as adults to go to the very end of the cul-de-sac, pool our resources into a big bucket of candy, and have adult beverages while we let the kids go over and grab the candy.
So when my kids were of trick-or-treating age, we used to go to a big field behind the middle school, a big farming field behind the middle school. People would drive in, back up their SUVs and minivans, and it was always SUVs and minivans, so that the backs were all facing around this big circle, and the kids would go car to car.
It's called trunk or treating.
Yeah, it was called trick or trunk in our neighborhood. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. But yeah, we did trick or trunk every year.
Lily, welcome. It's,
good morning.
I'm just going to warn you, Lily. 2 weeks in a row, it's a slippery slope. Say goodbye to your Fridays.
I know you can't get rid of me now.
and yet, you have gotten rid of all of your Fridays henceforth.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
Tim, nice to see you. We missed
nice
you
to
last
see you,
week.
Lily. How are you? Sorry, I missed you.
Doing well.
Sorry, I'm doing technical things off to the side with this. And Lily, I apologize. Robert did not be mindful of all the emails I was sending around that he included you with the list send this week. So you're like the rest of us. We get at the last minute and we're like, what is all this stuff? So you're welcome to the group in the normal way.
No worries.
Ironically, this week I read them all.
What?
Wow.
Oh,
all of them.
All of
Hold
them.
on.
That's impressive.
I made it through about 9 of the ones that I hadn't read, and I'd only read like 2 previous course of the week, and then the rest. I'm going to have strong opinions with no idea what I'm talking about. or as we call it.
Well, Mr. Edson, you read them. Would you be so kind as to bring us into the conversation? Because I am fighting my restream right now, and I'd love to go over and just reboot the thing and get it back out again because we got kicked off because of a screen share. I'm trying to make sure that we get broadcasted correctly. So please,
the top story that Robert had today was about Brand USA pleading its case to Congress as their funding hangs in the balance. Which is a bit clickbaity sounding because they're pleading their case for next year's funding expiration. So they're funded through 2020.
Well, they're funded into 2020. They're funded into September of 2020.
Right. So this is the same. I think they're not wanting to get as close as Visit Florida did on their funding. So I posted the link. What I found most interesting in this article that I had missed was that Pure Michigan got defunded.
Yeah.
Which is
a shame because that is a shame. It's a great. They've done great work, honestly.
It is, and go ahead.
I'm a native Michigander, so I'm a big fan of Pure Michigan. Oh, let's see. Right about here. Right there.
Fantastic.
Yep. Muskegon, Grand Rapids area.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, Pure Michigan was probably one of the best examples of a state-run campaign that actually had tangible impact. unlike some of the other state-run ones. This is actually an epidemic throughout the destination marketing landscape, and part of the problem that exists here, and this is an area we've researched a lot over the last couple of years, is we've moved into becoming a vendor that provides services to destination marketers.
Sure.
Is a lot of these destination marketing organizations have basically become pass-throughs for one of the three big agencies that serves destination marketing. And because of that, they find themselves, when it comes time to defend what they do, they're getting agency-driven data points to present, which to most people they'll realize at best are vanity metrics.
Well, what I always like to refer to as 15% commission and 85% confusion.
Yes, right.
And there are a lot of great agencies out there. There are a ton.
There are, and actually, I mean, quite honestly, I actually like one of the big three as being, far less evil and providing far better quality than the other big three. But it's
evil agencies.
Yeah, hey, fuel.
He's wearing his devil red shirt today.
That's right.
Yes, he is.
Is that Holly wearing that really horrible Stuart Butler mask? Now get that off. Halloween is over.
Halloween.
Actually, there's no way it's passable
Halloween.
as Stuart. I mean, it's way too wrinkled and baggy to be a real
Actually, it just
Stuart.
be just the picture froze for a second, and Stuart, I have to say, if you were to shave your eyebrows, you would look like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the first Terminator after his face.
Oh, that is true. Oh, and he froze again, just so you can see it.
Oh, there you go.
But what I meant to say was you look like a young Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Okay. I've got the muscle
Made of
definition
claymation.
for sure.
So anyway,
Wow.
So continuing into this article, the problem they actually face is, even though they have a head start, they're in a political climate where it's really hard to get anything passed by the House or Senate, which is problematic. Without them becoming, what do they call it, pork into another bill,
or a political football, right? So
right.
People have to give on a bunch of stuff they don't want to give on.
Right.
Yeah.
So with the impeachment, with the infighting, and with the upcoming election, they do have to be worried about the potential of them not being successful in time to keeping their funding, which is it's one of those things where you look at it and have to say, well, we're one of the power nations, and if we're not going to be marketing ourselves for tourism, it's not a good look.
Well, and it's especially compounded by the fact that, at least in some markets, at least, from some of the folks I've talked to and some of the things I've read and some of the things I'm seeing with various clients, and you guys know I always tread lightly when it comes to politics, because I don't think it's a particularly useful conversation, right? We're not going to change a lot of people's minds on some of this stuff. But at the same time, it is also unquestionably true that we're seeing a decline in inbound travel from overseas from a large number of markets. We have become a less attractive destination over the last year or two or three or so. Generally speaking. And so, the industry as a whole could really use this to do a better job of telling a story about why people should come to the States, why people should visit, and not just, and Ed, you're going to hate me for saying this, but not just visit Orlando and not just visit Vegas.
Well, it's actually an important thing to understand is a Brand USA failing to get funded isn't going to hurt Florida.
Correct.
It isn't going to hurt New York.
Right.
It isn't going to hurt California.
Vegas, it's not going to hurt Anaheim.
Right.
Right.
Where it's going to hurt, it's going to hurt exactly the lesser known destinations will be the ones that feel the majority of this, and you can actually see it when you dig into the budgets on who takes part in these Brand USA co-ops. It's the destinations that do not have the wherewithal to go standalone to WTM or ITB, and don't have the wherewithal to buy targeted marketing in Asia and throughout Europe to raise awareness of what they have to offer or how they should be part of an itinerary.
Right.
And so this was the same thing we were talking about when Visit Florida was facing being removed, is ironically the politicians who were fighting to defund Visit Florida were from the voter bases that would be the most negatively impacted.
Right.
And quite honestly, I mean, Visit Orlando, Palm Beaches, St. Pete, Clearwater, none of those destinations, none of those local destinations take part in Visit Florida to begin with.
Right.
So
Right.
they won't skip a beat. The primary destinations, Orlando's going to get its
Right,
60 to 70
Port
million
St.
visitors.
Lucie,
Right.
Right. It's a terrible time for Pure Michigan to be defunded, though, because that's definitely not going to be on one of those lists. So I think that when we're coming into states like Michigan, or I kind of always equate Pure Michigan with New Mexico's True campaign. I think they're both really, really well done. And definitely having different states like that step that up. Even Arizona could fall off from a defunding. So I think that that's something that these states need to step up and take notice of and maybe rethink their funding strategy.
Right.
I would
Yeah, and I would say
before-
too that going
Sorry, go ahead, Stuart.
sorry, Tim, going beyond just the fact that there's no funding, I think the fact that there's this discussion going on is just another PR nightmare for the U.S. in general. Coming from England and knowing the perception that there already is from foreigners to the United States in the lack of desire to travel or decreased desire to travel. With the trade, are we even going to fund trying to get people to come here? It's just another signal that U.S. wants to be an island and put up border walls and stop people coming. And that's not the intent of this, right, at all. It got caught up in a political snowstorm that really was nothing to do with it. And but it's sending another bad signal to the rest of the world that's going to have a big impact on the U.S.
Well, and the U.S. is making it harder for people to come, just in terms of the visa programs, which are underway, particularly in China, in terms of opening more availability, more locations. All of that wound up stopping. And at the same time, you have areas like Brazil who have gone and now they've eliminated visas for at least people from the U.S. So everyone else is enhancing it. Yeah,
I have a funny
two
story
things.
to tell about
Technically, Tim, your volume is low.
That's why you're being. That's why people are speaking over you. Tim.
Yeah, I think that's why we're speaking over you a little bit. Sorry about that.
I just thought
and just as a point of etiquette, Lily, do you know everybody? I mean, we're pretty familiar with everybody. You made proper introductions to everybody. Just make sure. Okay.
I have not met Lily before, so hey.
We haven't met before.
Holly likes to call him Stewie.
Stewie, got it. Yes. Don't worry, I LinkedIn stalked anybody that I wasn't familiar enough with, but luckily I've met both Tim and Ed in person in the past.
How's that? Is that better? Is that better, by the way, for me?
Yes, it is better for you. Yes.
Stuart,
by the way, just real quick to make sure Lily's fully in, the going joke with Stuart is we name a different location that he could be from that has an English accent.
Yeah,
one of the British Empire. Former British Empire.
I typically say because it's he's in the South and he's from England, he just sounds like he's from Australia.
Southern drawl.
That always goes over really well with the English.
Absolutely. But with regard to what people, I mean, this is a place where, if you're in Michigan, if you're in New Mexico, if you're in, Missouri, places like that, actually, I've got two quick things. One, call your representatives. I mean, this is something that they do respond when people, not always and not about everything, but, use it strategically and call your representatives to try to get them on board to say, hey, I'm a small business owner. I run a business here in the state, and this is important to me, and it would be really great if you got behind this. But it's funny, you raise a great point, Robert, about China. This is just an apocryphal story, right? This is a focus group of one situation. But I was at the Sands Casino, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, not long ago, seeing a concert, which is now the Wind Creek, by the way. Sands no longer operates that.
Really?
Yeah, and literally, I was shocked. I did not expect this. I'd been there a number of times. We go and see concerts out there. They have a really great concert venue out there. And I did not, the first time I'd ever seen this, literally the entire casino was filled with Chinese tourists. It's a big tour operator venue. And then I was at Mohegan Sun up in Connecticut not long ago, 2 weeks ago for another concert, and exactly the same thing. So, it is clearly these markets that are not primary destinations by any stretch that really stand to suffer the most. So, get on the phone, write an email, write a letter, get in contact with your representatives if you're in Bethlehem or you're in, I can't remember how to, Uncasville, Connecticut. And say, hey, this is really important. And it should be important to the people who, run the local restaurants and run the local shops and things like that, because it plays a significant role in their local economy.
And since there's an election next year, say that you're considering where you're going to be investing your spend in terms of backing candidates, and you want to know where their position is.
Yep, and you won't get a response, much like I didn't from either of the governor candidates for the state of Florida. I asked both campaigns where they stood on funding for Visit Florida, and neither responded. And then I reached out to Visit Florida and asked them if they knew, and they didn't respond. So,
I at least in my experience, and I don't want to claim that I've had tremendous success with this, but the handful of times I've contacted my representatives, I do find the staffer responds a little better when you are politely angry. When you're, hey, this is a thing that's really important to me. This is a thing that's really important to me. I'm a voter, and I don't know what the candidate's position on this, but it gives me a lot of pause as to whether this is somebody I can remotely support for office.
So it may be my subject lines of "Hello, criminal" that that may not be going over well, and maybe that's why I'm not getting a response.
Right.
I mean, clearly, I'm writing both sides with that subject line.
Right. When you open with "Bob, you ignorant jackass," that may not go over so well.
You should A/B test those subject lines. Always be tested.
Tim prefers the New Jersey subtle approach. He just actually physically goes down to the office, leans against the lamppost, and just peels an apple with his 18-inch kitchen knife outside.
Exactly. Always tell them, nice campaign office you got here. Be a shame if something happened to it, is all I'm saying. I find if you leave a bag of money on the front seat of the car, that usually goes over well.
Yeah. Leave the gun, keep the cannoli.
Take the gun, leave the cannoli, leave the gun. Wait, which I think I always get that wrong.
Leave the gun, leave the gun, take the cannoli. Now if you'd come to me in friendship.
Or when his daughter's getting married.
Alrighty. So
to further this, though, you're going to see more and more of this, and the destinations are becoming aware of this, and so they're trying to change. This is something we've been working with multiple destinations on. One of the key things that has them talking to us is we've put together an interesting plan that gets them working closer with hotels, but also gets them really good data about what's happening in real time in their market. And this is something they're all lacking in easy access to, is they actually don't fundamentally understand the impact of each campaign spend. And sometimes they do get understanding of it, but they get it in arrears. Rather than forward-looking.
Yeah.
So since we're talking about politics and travel and things like that, can we talk about the Airbnb and Jersey City story? And I'm going to be full transparency here. This is one that I'm struggling to understand, and I am a voter in New Jersey, and I'm traveling next week, and I have my absentee ballot sitting out to go in the mail tomorrow morning. So this is top of mind for me, and I have not yet made up my mind. Because I agree completely with the. So the story, by the way, is that one of the most expensive campaigns in history on a per capita basis is being waged in Jersey City, New Jersey, and basically there is a bill that they're looking to pass. For people who don't know Jersey City, it's right across the river. There are people who joke that it's New York's seventh borough. because Hoboken, of course, is the 6th borough, and then Jersey City is the next one in line. But it's there's a referendum about whether or not Airbnb can operate in Jersey City in the way that they have. And, it's a 4-minute train ride across the river from Manhattan. And so the folks who are pumping money into this are Airbnb on one side under the banner of keep our homes, right?
Keep our homes rented.
right. Which and it's definitely an astroturfing thing. Like, it's designed to look like it's grassroots, and it's not grassroots at all. But at the same time, there's an equally sizable investment coming from hotel operators and the like in New York primarily, because they don't want people to compete with them. And I agree in principle with the New York Hotel and Motel Trades Council of there should be some common sense regulation around short-term rentals. You're not, clearly, think about what I do for a living. There is no way that I'm not going to support saying that there should be a level playing field for, vacation rentals and home rentals and the like. At the same time, at least in this specific case, I'm not sure this referendum is it. Because it's a really strange bill, and it's got a lot of problems in it from my immediate perspective in terms of, if you're a larger building, if you have more than 4 units, you can't rent any of it on the short term, unless the owner lives on property, which what?
That's actually, I mean, I know you're saying what to that, but that does create some protection and buys some airspace for them to build a more fulsome bill should that side win. I mean, this is the problem when you're presenting stuff like this, is you don't want to overinvest in a quality bill with no understanding of if it's going to get the right support. Because the problem is the people who should care about this, which are the residents of that area, are not educated enough to know what matters. So it's taking the sophisticated lobbyists kind of duking it out and presenting alternatives to develop what it's going to be. So you're getting the blunt instrument of how do we make it not anti-small business or anti-grassroots business. Like, so you want to buy a building and improve it and live in one of the units and rent out all the rest. Okay, then that you'd be able to pass through on that. But if you want to buy and accumulate multiple city blocks and turn them into what basically are hotels without having to have any of the restrictions, requirements of a hotel, then you shouldn't allow that. So it is a blunt instrument, and you would hope, you really should look at this and say, okay, which is worse? If they get through and get to continue through unfettered and the politicians see it as being told that people don't care, then that's probably worse than it creates some wrinkles and hiccups for people who maybe aren't quite abusing and acting like hotels, but also aren't living in their buildings that they're doing this with. I mean, that's a pretty small population that would be upset by at least putting a fair and balanced approach in. So Florida, luckily, has had VRBO forever.
Oh, sure.
So Airbnb came into a state that was already ready. You cannot be a short-term rental provider without the correct licensing by the state. And so apartments cannot be rented for shorter terms than 7 months because of that law.
It's 7 months. Wow.
It's 7 months.
Longer than I realized,
But you can register to be a short-term rental provider and pay the fees and follow the rules and the reporting and everything, and then you could do that. So, when you look at the other areas trying to get their arms around it, that takes a while, and it's going to take a while to really develop out what the full law is going to be, but you have to start somewhere that at least stops the bleeding and gives you an indication of if the voting public cares.
Right.
That's a fair point.
It's interesting taking it from another perspective. There's a comment in the article about how, residents are sort of complaining about the increased number of tourists in the area. And I think that this really speaks to a broader issue where this happens often. I mean, it's come up for me in a lot of different markets where I've heard that the residents are annoyed by tourism. Healdsburg, it came up for me, Lisbon, Portugal, it's really widespread.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to a lack of the average American's understanding of what tourism can do for them. Because sure, you might not want a bunch of people coming in and out of your street, but if you are in an economy that needs a boost, tourism is certainly an excellent way to do that.
But only if the correct taxes are being collected.
For sure.
So,
yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
I live in Orlando, and I'll tell you what, I would be annoyed to no end if I wasn't getting the benefits that I'm getting from tourism tax. I mean, our housing tax is incredibly low. We have beautiful infrastructure. We have lots of positives to the fact that tourism is an economic driver here. But if I'm in an area that tourism's never been a thing, and Airbnb type tourism is what brought a lot of it, then you're getting none of the benefit. You're not getting a tax base of people who aren't consuming.
And especially in Jersey City, if they're just going across to Manhattan.
Well, yeah.
Well,
yeah,
I mean, and that's a perfect example because there's nothing to see in Jersey.
Right.
Hey. Hey, come on.
There's a stone pony in Asbury Park.
And the oil refineries of Elizabeth.
Right. The Garden State, just like Greenville, or Greenland is green.
You're going to have to come to my house before we sell it, by the way. But nonetheless, no.
I think move to Manhattan.
No, but
he's selling it so he can make an Airbnb.
To move closer in, for sure.
Yeah.
No, Lily, you're exactly right. I was in Barcelona in the spring, and I mean, Barcelona is on the verge of civil war for a whole host of reasons, but not the least of which is, over tourism, is absentee rental owners and things along those lines, right? And Ed is exactly right. And improper allocation of taxes, of what the renters and the apartment owners pay versus the people who are running a business out of an empty apartment and live in the UK, right? It's definitely a big issue and something that industry and government need to come together on far, far better than they have to date. Yep. And good luck at that happening next year.
It requires nuanced regulation, which is not
what?
the environment for yeah, exactly. Well, that's an oxymoron. That's the jumbo shrimp of
Well, I think, but from my perspective, that's the challenge, though, right? Because I mean, Tim, I would consider you, and you would probably consider yourself somewhat of an expert on hospitality, right? Having worked in the industry for so long, and you're struggling to make a decision on this bill, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because it's very complicated. So average Joe on the street really isn't going to have the barometer by which to measure this. And so ultimately, who's going to win any of these kind of battles? Just like Brexit is whoever runs a better campaign that finds the emotional tag. Yeah, it is a marketing war. It's got nothing to do with the quality of the regulation itself. So, money will probably win this. Who's going to have deeper pockets? And get smarter campaign.
Well,
Airbnb calls the campaign what they call it is genius, right? Because it's almost like, we're on your side, residents.
By the way, Stuart, I want to call out one thing you just said a moment ago. So one of the places I do follow politics, and I think I've said this on the show before. Well, that's not true. One of the places I follow politics that I will talk about publicly, that I've talked about on the show, is politics is brilliant from a marketing perspective in the sense of it's the only campaign you will ever run as a marketer that literally is a zero-sum campaign. Mm-hmm. At the end of it, you know whether your marketing worked or did not, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or if your product was any good or was not.
Yeah, if you're successful or not.
Correct. On November 5th,
Cambridge Analytica actually showed that if you're too good at it, you're going to get crushed.
Right, but
they won.
But that's precisely the point. But that's precisely the point. Is you said two things, Stuart, and I'm going to call you out on one of them, not because you're wrong, but because I think it's a common misconception that can be misinterpreted. Right? Is you said whoever spends the most money and runs the better campaign is going to win. And, we've seen plenty of cases in politics and in business generally where you don't have to spend the most money to win. You have to spend it in the right ways, right?
For sure.
But yeah, otherwise I agree completely that it's definitely whoever runs the better campaign on this likely is going to win. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And the Airbnb is toxic to affordable housing in these
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right. In these primary, it increases, it radically changes the economics, and all of a sudden you wind up losing things like the little dry cleaner or something like that. All the infrastructure the people who live there need wind up evaporating and getting replaced with restaurants and cupcake shops and all sorts of things which are not really
and in this specific case, and this is going to be different in different locations. In this specific case, Jersey City is going through a massive gentrification process to start with.
Absolutely.
Right? The reason that people are referring to it as the seventh borough is because nobody can afford to live in Manhattan, and they've begun to get seriously priced out of Hoboken. So suddenly, Jersey City is the affordable place.
I mean,
I have a friend who lives in an apartment there. Well, I have a friend who has an apartment there. His building was the tallest building in town when he moved in 2.5 years ago. And there are 4 places within 3 blocks of where he lived that will be taller by the end of 2020.
That's like Nashville right now. Nashville is amazing.
Correct.
You spend a couple of months, you're like, this isn't the same city.
And the cost of urban sprawl is burdensome.
Right.
I mean, when you talk about if the further you push out the important people to make an economy happen, the more you then have to spend on transportation solutions. And
Lily, where do you live?
Phoenix. And
so thinking of urban sprawl.
No kidding. We are one of the
I was going to point to Lily and say, hey, Lily, how's Phoenix doing these days? Yeah.
Well, I mean, soon Phoenix will be a commuter town to New York.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, that's just the way. No, but I think it's absolutely a fair point. I mean, this is a silly little anecdote to go along with that, but I live way in West Phoenix, right? And kind of, you would say that Central Phoenix is kind of contained with the 101 loop. All of our highways are loops around the city. None of them like to go through the city except the 10 for whatever reason. So
it consolidates the traffic really nicely.
Yeah, theoretically. So if we want to go up to Flagstaff, right, we take the 10 to the 101 and we have to go up to the 17, which is all well and good, except from the 10 to the 101, the on-ramp is 1 lane. Right. And on our slowest day of traffic, there is a half-mile backup because of how much people have to slow down to get on that on-ramp because they didn't plan properly for the expansion. And now there's not a lot they can do about it. I mean, this on-ramp goes way over other highways and everything. There's not a lot that they can do to rectify it. And it really creates a bottleneck from a transportation standpoint. So I think that another thing we're running into, and to your point about transportation, is that cities aren't necessarily planning ahead for it. They don't have the vision or the foresight about what might happen with their expansion.
or the willingness of the tax base to support what they ought to be doing in the first place.
The highways being constructed right now, I think the tax base is there for transportation.
You say that, except Orlando's redoing most of its infrastructure over the last 10 years it started, and it's continuing into the next 5 years, and it's one of the largest budgeted for a central location. It was something like $17 billion spent in infrastructure.
That's fantastic.
And it's mostly road expansion. I-4, which really goes right through the middle, and is really the only way to get around, for the longest time was the same footprint it had been since the 70s, until you got down into the tourism area. Well, the problem is people are going to Daytona now, and people are going to other places, and people are living further out. And so it is one of those things that if you don't plan correctly and if you don't have the correct laws in place to stop artificial push, so Airbnb is that problem. Airbnb creates an artificial speeding of pushing people further and further out because they cannot afford to live in the center. You then end up with billion-dollar problems and multi-billion-dollar problems. So it is better to get in front of it And even if it's a blunt instrument to start, that maybe creates a little bit of pain for people who are caught in the edges. You really should be backing controlling it. Because
okay, fine, I'll vote for against the bill.
Well, no, but the challenge.
Stewart a lot. I know this pains Stewart a lot because we are talking about Airbnb, but I will say to some degree, because I think when you were talking about this, Key West is a prime example. Barcelona, another great example of over tourism, where it is it's almost a victimless crime, where you talk about the laundromats that no longer exist, and now there's trinkets and bubble shops because cruise ships come in and destroyed Key West. That the entire island is within walking distance of everybody that piles off the boat. So the entire island is geared to every 4 hours a wave of people wanting to buy stuff. So the infrastructure of the localization of it, the people that want to go to a laundromat or need a laundromat aren't there anymore. They literally are priced out. And the owners of the property, they're not a victim. The people that are renting it, they're not a victim. They're making the money off it, whatever it is. It's almost a victimless crime, except for the culture of it, that Key West is now faced with the fact that they hit a roadblock, that the environment is that they're not going to expand the channel to get to Key West so the megala boats can get there now. Only the still moderate size older boats, which eventually will no longer still be in service, are the only ones that still fit into the canal. So eventually one of two things are going to happen. Either Key West is going to have to go against environmentalist people and dig up a bunch of coral so the big boats can come in, or they have to come back to a sustained localized economy without the tourism boats anymore. I don't know which way that's going to go, but I imagine with the Airbnb conversation, it's a precursor to, I can't build a big hotel, but I can rent the bejesus out of a small little building. And that kind of is maybe in a strange way, this is a way of getting off of some of the over-tourism in some of the smaller markets, where the Airbnb is kind of the precursor to creating that tourism economy without having to build Marriott, boy.
Yeah, but again, the big loser is education systems, right? Because you don't have anybody with children, and then you don't have schools, and it's a horrible situation. So these laws require maximum durations of stays, or different there's numbers of days that can be rented. It's
Key
really
West has
complicated stuff.
20 drink minimum in their tax law, right?
But they want to be very clear.
Buy in Key West.
But let's be fair. They don't put a duration on that. If you want to do that all in 15 minutes,
Exactly.
you are free to do so.
Free to do so. That's more Panama City Beach. That's more PCB. PCB is a little bit more along that line. So.
But one of the biggest businesses in Keys is the busing business, because nobody can afford to live in the Keys, but the staff still need to show up.
Yeah, sure.
Florida City and everybody else. The buses come down. I mean, look at the one coming down. There's bus after bus because people can't live. They had to actually put a limit as to how many people can live in a domicile of 15 per room, because they had bunk beds for people. They were just changing cycles. They would go work and shift, and they come back and crash in a bunk bed and go back and work a shift. It's insane, that the density problem.
Wait a second. You're worried about the poor?
We're talking politics here, Lauren. There's no room about the poor.
They do not donate much to campaign, Lauren.
Sorry, Lily, you were trying to get a word in edgewise.
Yeah, speaking of sharing rooms, have you guys seen Super 8's new room concept? I know it's not officially on our list today, but curious if you
Roommate. I'm going to talk about this a little, because I think and I never talk about Wyndham stuff. Lily, I think you know this. Everybody else knows this for sure. My wife works for Wyndham, so I try to keep a separation of church and state. However, I actually sent an email to the president of Super 8, who's a friend of mine, the other day, because I think it's a super cool concept. I think it's a really great idea. It's called Roommate, Room 8. Very clever.
Dad joke.
Hashtag dad joke, which good market for them. And it's designed for, short-term, multi-generation, a lot of people in the room, things like that. I don't remember all the specifics. Lily, you could probably explain this better. But the idea being that, we're reconfiguring the rooms to meet the needs of a different kind of traveler, and put, more people in the room because of kids, or because of, millennials, or and I shouldn't say millennials. That's not really true. Because of Gen Z, college student level folks who are a little bit younger and need someplace affordable. I think it's very in line with what Super 8 is and has always been, which is an economy. my favorite campaign we ever ran at Super 8 when I worked for the company was we did this whole very, very photojournalistic series of videos about all the places you go. You're the gray collar, traveling salesperson. You're the family who's going to Disney and you're heading down, I-4, or you're heading down to Florida from the East Coast, or things along those lines, or you're taking your kids to college or whatever. And the whole campaign was basically, we know that we're not your destination, but wherever you are, and between wherever you are and where you're going, there's a Super 8. And we'll see you along the way.
Right.
Which I just thought was a perfect campaign.
Because it's honest.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
They're not trying to be something that they're not. They're really, it's authentic marketing.
And this plays right into that, and I think it is brilliant from that perspective. Is it right for every
business on this roommate model is going to be insane.
Huge.
Right.
Yeah.
Huge.
But I think also, I don't think this is just your Gen Z or your millennial traveler. I think this is families, because what really made me look at it is the shared common area. And frankly, that's why most hotels can't compete with Airbnb. So this is, to me, this concept is going directly after the Airbnb traveler, which is what made me think about it, because they've got a shared room. They've got an apartment size fridge and microwave, which granted isn't a full kitchen, but it's a start. And then they have a foosball table, cornhole boards. It's really built to be a shared room, but with privacy. Everybody went after the lobby, which is one way to tackle it. But if you want to have a shared space with your family and you don't want your kids running around the lobby causing havoc, you have something to keep them entertained here. And you can still be with them, and you don't have to have them sitting on your bed watching TV all together. Like, it's a comfortable living room style concept that I think is going to attract a lot of people away from Airbnb, because you've got a lot of reasons to use Airbnb, but let's be honest, one of them is price point. For Super 8 to roll this out at a comfortable price point is something that's...
Well, it allows them to maximize the revenue of the footprint.
Right.
So they'll actually make more money overall, while making it less money per person for the people who are looking at this, which is super effective. But Wyndham has been onto this for a while, as you all know.
Yeah.
As a parent of young children, Wyndham Grand with their bunk bedrooms, they've got me. Like, I absolutely love them. When I find a Wyndham Grand that has the bunk bedrooms, I'm all in. Like, you're not getting me to stay anywhere else.
Right. But Ed, I want to ask you this specifically, because you're a resident Orlando expert, our resident Florida expert. We used to take our kids, and I worked for Wyndham at the time, and I'm probably going to get in some trouble for this with somebody, but we used to take our kids to the Nickelodeon suites all the time when we went to Orlando, and I never got why more people didn't get on that concept.
The family suites, yeah.
Oh my God, we loved them. They weren't the best properties, but they were perfect for what our needs were. We were spending most of our days at the
Nickelodeon, which took a $30 million room renovation to bring it up to the standard of a Holiday Inn. So yeah. But like the Wyndham Grand Bonnet Creek, which is very close.
Love Bonnet Creek, yeah.
That is where we stay for Disney. Because it's as close to the parks as Disney's own hotels to get there. Yeah, but man, for $159 or $199, you're staying in close to a Waldorf Astoria quality in a room that has all they basically did was take a walk-in closet and pull the door off it, put 2 bunk beds and a small TV in it.
Yeah.
Done. Perfect. Love it. It's my favorite room type of there. So this makes sense. Like, this is okay. How do you take, that's the high end. And don't be fooled by the price. Bonnet Creek, for some reason, does not do well. None of the hotels get the price point they should for the flag that they fly.
Well, it's because there's just too much. There's too many other options.
Right. I mean, the Waldorf Astoria Hilton complex there. Yeah. It's the cheapest Waldorf you could possibly stay at in any of them.
Because people will trade down. There's enough other options that are okay enough. And you're going to spend your day at the park anyway, right? So
go elsewhere. We the Wyndham Grand in Clearwater, has a bunk bed room that they actually partnered with the Clearwater Aquarium. So all the rooms are themed to the dolphins from the Dolphin Tale.
Oh, that's cool.
And when you buy the
Very
room, you
smart.
get tickets to the Clearwater Aquarium. My kids love it. It's why we went there. So, when you look at what Super 8's doing with the roommate model, they're answering that family traveler that, I'm sorry, lockouts with young kids, so adjoining rooms with a lockout with young kids is not a suitable solution.
Right. That's right.
Because they have a door that they can walk out of without you hearing it. And when you have kids under the age of 10, you don't want that.
Yeah,
Which, by the way,
mom and dad have to split up, right? One takes one kid in this room, one takes so that they're chaperoned and all of that. But from a financials perspective, designated revenue manager in the room, this makes me wonder, like, how can we face this challenge in revenue management? Because I'm pretty sure this is not the last concept we're going to see like this. They're just the front runners, right? It was designed by a college student, which frankly, if you haven't had a college student design something for you lately, you should probably do that, because that's the wave of the future. They're in tune with what these travelers want, right? Like, they're bringing the fresh ideas. They're not biased, but I digress. My point is, there's this whole community.
You're allowed to digress, by the way. That could actually be the name of the show.
Digress.
But I digress. This
But
hospitality
that's
marketing.
great. That's a great
But I
name for
digress.
the show. But really, how do you price it, and when? And here is something that we probably need to really look at on the revenue management side of things. When do we start measuring by square feet and not by room key? Because technically, this could be considered one room key. Theoretically, although I didn't see details on this, theoretically it has one entrance. So it's got multiple bedrooms,
It's one key.
shared common area. It's one key.
Yeah.
So
But it's
how
a bay.
do you
I think it's a
price
bay
that?
and it's technically, I believe, a bay and a half. I think.
Right.
But
So
but
if
that's
you want
not
to look at it from a real
that's
estate
not-
perspective. Price per square foot. We do that in catering space revenue management.
Yeah.
Although you have to be careful, because if you go down that rabbit hole, you will no longer be able to justify spending on a porte cochere or a lobby, which, I mean, by all hotel
Well, you've got
marketing,
your revenue generating and non-revenue generating.
Ed, hold on. I've actually have a great story about this. We had a discussion years ago when I was at Leading. We were meeting with somebody from a property. I won't out the property, and they were talking about how they maximized the yield of all the different spaces and how they took this office and turned it into a fitness center and all this other kind of stuff, And the head of marketing for Leading at the time said, who was very much a marketing, brand person, right? And she was wonderful, but she was definitely very, let's talk about brand, let's talk about experience, let's talk about all that. And she said, but what about the intangible value? And the guy, without even breaking a stride, said, oh, that's simple. We pay for those with intangible dollars.
Well, and you get a great ROI on those. It's unbelievable.
I think that there's these spaces all over hospitality, right? Because we have the same conversation when it comes to looking at a piece of group business. Does the group repeat?
Right.
What's the relationship factor? Is there a corporate account attached to this? So I think that, from a marketing perspective, a great porte-cochere, great lobby, great photography, first of all. I can't even begin to tell you, when I get onto a website and 3 different room types have the exact same photo, how much it drives me insane. But you've got to have those elements. Yeah.
I quote Robert all the time on that topic. I quote Robert, who is actually quoting, I think it's an Expedia person, or it might have been Travelocity person back in the day. But I quote Robert constantly, who said, pretty pictures sell hotels.
Oh, for sure.
Right? So,
why do you think hotels are selling on Instagram?
Exactly. Now, I do have a couple of quick points. Lily, the one thing I think, a place where Super 8 has a huge advantage on this, and I'm not trying to knock Super 8, but they don't tend to yield as aggressively as, right? This is not a upscale property, and that's, by definition, their yielding tends to be much more narrow to start with. So it's also easier for them to manage on that level, because they just have to make sure
They're in need of an
Correct.
identity
That's
overhaul.
exactly
and
right.
This is a brilliant identity overhaul because this is how you will get someone who normally would not consider a Super 8
Exactly right.
to at
Absolutely.
least look and become aware of Super 8. This is how they can stand out. This is
Right.
also how they can put hope into their owner base. Because here's the thing. I mean, if you look at, let's look at another brand like this that has gone through a renaissance, which is G6, Motel 6.
Yep.
So the only way G6 was able to do it was Blackstone bought most of them,
Right.
overhauled all of those
Right.
to a point where they could say to the remaining owners, you don't have a choice. You
Right.
have to
Right.
do this. So, well, how do you do that with a Super 8? Well, because you're not going to go and buy them all. Right. And put in the investment. Well,
Far from.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you have to go the other way? You have to excite the owner base and get them feeling like there's a future that has upward mobility for them.
Well, and this is one of the points I wanted to make, and I'm sorry for cutting you off, but this was one of the key things I wanted to say. People are very fond of saying in the hospitality industry that we're not an innovative industry. And I think that is a self-perpetuating prophecy, right? This is innovative. It doesn't seem like it ought to be all that innovative, but I mean, for Christ's sakes, the heavenly bed was innovative once upon a time, and there's one in every freaking room in every property everywhere.
That was my favorite education. So I've never worked in a hotel, but I've been in the industry my entire adult life. And when I joined Starwood's owner board association, to sit and listen how the most mundane detail of a hotel has someone burning to innovate it, to hear Connie Kim talk about how she was innovating in linen design that not only felt as good as high thread count sheets, but didn't require bleaching, which meant it was better for the environment. It was less expensive. It was more durable because it was made out of bamboo. To hear how recycling receptacles has someone sitting there burning passion about how they're moving that forward, to talk to the Bose rep about how Bose is helping hotels design better spaces before they're even built by allowing them to plug the CAD design in, name what materials it'll be built out of, and you can hear what that space will sound like. That was my favorite education I've had in this industry, is that it is incredibly innovative.
That's right.
In every single mundane detail.
When we do it right. And it's it's this thing of, and I know this is This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing. I know I've spent 25 years of my career in digital, and also innovation doesn't mean you built a new website. And innovation doesn't mean you launched an app. And innovation doesn't mean you had a chatbot, right? Stop thinking that innovation has to be about digital. This thing that Super 8 is doing with Roommate, this thing that, Starwood did with the Heavenly Bed, the things that, we could probably
Embassy Suites.
Embassy Suites can be remarkably innovative.
Doubletree with the cookies.
Doubletree with the cookies. Totally. And then to bring it back to Lily's question about how do you yield this and how do you price it and stuff like that. And then guess what? You get to charge whatever you want because you're differentiated from the guy across the street who's got the exact same bed or the exact same wallpaper.
You have shed your anchors.
Yeah,
you have
exactly.
Done two things. You've done two things. One is you've identified who your three things. You've identified who your customer is. You understand why they're staying there, and you've created value for them. Right.
Wait,
Wow.
we're supposed to do those things, Robert? Wait, what?
Well, you don't have to. I mean, you can just raise your price arbitrarily because that will maximize stuff.
It's it's one of my favorite stories in the history of the industry, and I wish it was my story to tell, but I heard Barry Sternlicht actually tell the story when they launched the Heavenly Bed. I was at a conference, a Forrester conference, as it happens, when they launched the Heavenly Bed, and he talked about the fact that they ran a study and they showed people pictures of hotel rooms and asked them to identify the brand, and these were Starwood brands. And the results came back, and they were worse than random chance. Like, people actively had to have been trying to come up with results this bad. And then he hit us with the punchline. And the punchline was they'd run the study using Starwood employees. The Starwood employees couldn't tell the brands apart.
Right.
And he said,
same with the websites.
Right.
Now, you do the thing with the websites. If you turn them black and white, you eliminate the branding, you eliminate the colors.
That's exactly right.
You will under-index. I guarantee.
You know what? I think Hilton does a much better job talking about the room differential, because there's been at least 3 different times where I walked into a hotel room this year and said, "Oh, this used to be a Hilton."
Yeah.
And then looked it up and proved it
because
very
actually
easily.
had
A Hampton, a Hilton, all of those, they had very specific colors. They had specific materials in the bathrooms. I can identify a Hilton bathroom anywhere.
Yeah, and they had different floor plans, like notably different floor plans.
Yeah.
Actually, just because Robert brought it up a moment ago, it is actually a game my wife and I play of the properties we walk into and we go, "Oh, this used to be an Embassy Suites."
Yeah.
Right.
Well, specifically because of the atrium, right? I mean, that's
right.
And the interior exterior corridor. You know, like that's the
you can tell
giveaway.
any property that ever started as a holodome.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure that's 50% of Howard Johnson's current properties started life as a holodome.
That's where you get a chance to actually differentiate and set the price that you want to. Obviously there are limits and things like that, but you put yourself in such a better position.
One of the articles that you put into, Robert, was the Oyo, the listings. I, even having worked with Oyo, did not realize that they had other brand levels above what I had been working with on their U.S. ventures and the Indians. That one article that showed about all the different tiers. I didn't even know they had luxury-ish, if not luxury.
They bought Hooters.
Properties.
They bought Hooters.
That was the new feature of that. But I mean, normally it was the lower end, and that's why I think the Super 8 thing is awesome too. Is that because they have to do something about this battle that's going on in this lower end of affordable travel, that they have to create these variations now. That
I got to tell you, I mean, Red Lion, they have a concept that they haven't built much of, but where they're taking those exterior corridor like old motels and making them super trendy and like cool looking. I want to see more of those, because like that's Clearwater Beach, Florida is nothing but those motels. And, to have a brand, understand that the answer isn't just tear it down. It's make it cool, give it a funky colored door, and, lean into the design element of the time period. And you'll be able to differentiate it from the ones that are charging by an hour down the street.
They've done a really good job of that in Scottsdale with the property. And Ed, if I'm not mistaken, it's the one that you and I met at, the Days Hotel in Scottsdale.
They did a great job with that.
They did. I mean, I walked in there because Ed presented at a meeting there for HSMAI. That's where we met. I walked in there after it converted to Hotel Adeline, and I could not place where I had been when it was the Days Hotel, because it looked so dramatically different. And everybody, we've had some meetings there, we've recommended it to some people, and everybody loves it. And it's very unusual to say like, oh, I love this 2-story exterior corridor hotel.
But you know what?
They did an excellent job.
It's a phenomenal property.
Universal Studios built one from the ground up. It's called Cabana Bay. It is the coolest newer hotel that we've had in the area, and it's that building, like it's super cool. And the way the buildings all like over time got connected and how they added meeting space, that adds character. And so you can differentiate yourself in the budget level by thinking just through design. Take the Target approach. Cheap chic is a brilliant strategy.
The Target approach.
That's right.
Well, and let me tell you, the RLH group, right? Red Lion's, parent corporation, they certainly have opportunities now, since they have Nights Inn and America's Best Value Inn, and those two brands, could use
some help.
Radical. Well, I don't know about America's Best Value Inn, but I know the Net Promoter Score for Nights Inn is like -25, which is not generally where you want to start.
Yeah,
This is a really interesting thing to go into in the potential recession too, is, economy hotels are probably going to become really important to travelers who are looking to save money, but a lot of them have fallen out of favor, with travelers who are educated or traveled for any, decent amount of nights per year because of design, safety, and cleanliness concerns. So I think it's the perfect time for economy operators to embrace these design trends and do a little
clear, when we say economy, that no longer includes any of Hilton's brands, which used to have a stronghold in mid economy. But now all of those hotels have ADRs over 150 a night. Same product, no change. It doesn't include any of Marriott's brands. These are, real economy. There's been this gap. You've either stayed where you are and kind of gone downhill, or somehow you've taken what was economy and brought it up into that $100+ price point because your location is worth it. And so you're, and this is the funny thing over time. I mean, so my old business partner from Easy Yield, made his way as a road warrior for a management company in his younger age. And he was one of the first people to take a Hampton Inn and get its ADR north of $100. And this was at a time that Hampton Inn's ADR ceiling was $89.
Right.
And now look, find me a Hampton Inn below $100 a night. It's pretty tough to find. So economy, I think there is a big opportunity there. I think OYO is jumping on it. Red Lion's got the makings to be able to do it. It's, you just have to realign,
innovate and execute.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, think about why, some went up market. It was so you could sell a crap ton of these franchises to real estate investment trusts.
Sure.
I mean, but a real estate investment trust isn't going to invest in something that has that low of a rate. So these franchise companies that have gone that way now actually have to think about, real people own these properties, they're small business people. They're, it's a different person to deal with.
Oh, without question. I mean, I grew up in the industry in that space, right? We owned Super 8, we owned Nights Inn, we owned Days Inn, we owned Howard Johnson, we owned Travelodge, and they still do own all of those brands except for Nights Inn. I rarely talk about Wyndham for all the reasons that I did. I've already stated, but the truth of the matter is, and I think I can say this out loud, is Super 8 and Days Inn are 4,000 of the 9,000 properties. They are still an enormous contributor to the revenues and to the profitability of that business because they just have a lot of them, right? Howard Johnson and Travelodge are another 1,000 properties or something like that, and are functionally, I don't know that this is true today. It certainly was true when I was there. They were an East Coast and West Coast brand, right? It was Howard Johnson was on the East Coast and Travelodge was, or east of the Mississippi, west of the Mississippi. And I think they're recession proof. I think, if in fact we have a downturn or at least a slowing down, which certainly seems likely, they're somewhat recession proof. And these are the folks who become the great operators over time. Not every one of them, but it's where a lot of great operators have come from. They learn their craft. They learn their trade owning a 49-room, $79 a night product. You learn a lot about how to be a good hotel operator, or you don't make your note every month. You know what I mean? And the number of folks who I know in the industry who started out with a Super 8 or a Travelodge or a Days Inn, who now own 10 of them, plus a couple of, Courtyards, plus a couple of Hamptons, plus, is a non-trivial number of people. So it's an enormous opportunity for these brands and for these owners to get good at what they do again, if there is a softening, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Well, also, I think the lower scale brands recognize.
Robert, you're muted, by the way.
Oh, sorry. If you can provide quality accommodation at affordable prices, that is the absolute bottom line for it, because it is. And for groups like Super 8, there aren't a lot of folks below them. Now that's where Oyo's coming in, but Oyo is going to have huge problems, right? They had amazing potential, but they've got the whole SoftBank issue is one anchor around their neck, and they're doing their tech stack. Well, 3 problems, I guess. I keep doing that today too, and adding the third. There's a trailer. I'm trailer playing myself.
Wait,
they've
today?
tech stack issues, and third, their satisfaction sucks. Right? They've got to clean up their. It isn't just cheap and dumpy. There, if they can take those underinvested, fringe properties and make them cool and unique and clean and well managed. Wow, that's a huge
lower the expectation of the customer. I mean, there's two ways to fix
that's fair, but
dissatisfaction.
But
one is to
but the
meet
problem
the
with that, Ed,
expectation or lower it.
Ed, the problem with that, you might be being somewhat sarcastic, you might be being somewhat serious, but the problem with that, and again, this was something we very much learned at Wyndham. Steve Rudnitsky, the CEO at the time, went on a huge quality initiative. And the reason he went on a huge quality initiative, yes, it was for the guest, but realistically, it was for the owners. Because what happens is the good owners don't want to be associated with the brand, and then they would go and become a Hampton, or they would go and become a
It's the same reason we have HOAs, right?
And
correct.
In many markets, it's the same idea.
It's the same idea. So Oyo has to deal with the quality thing, or the people who actually are clueful are going to bail, and then they're going to have
then you're left with what you didn't set out to
correct.
And it's got to be clean. And the problem is, if it's scratched or old, that equals dirty.
Right.
Well, actually, you're right about those, but more
it's a
importantly,
patina. Again, it's how you set expectations.
Yeah, but you guys know this. Come on, what is the number one thing people notice when they walk into a room?
The toilet.
Nope.
Top picture taken on TripAdvisor, so I figured.
Sure. But there's
the TV.
Nope.
The bed.
Nope.
I mean, what's left in this room?
The walls, the paint.
The scent.
The scent. Yes.
The first thing people notice. You walk into a room and you're like, who died in here last week?
Right.
You got a real problem.
Get out your bingo cards. JD Power customer satisfaction study.
Yep.
The whole scent, the big things that we were running around telling all the hotel companies about, the scent, and then really B, being the overall quality of sleep, which is kind of the purpose of the hotel.
Right. Yeah.
Those are huge drivers for satisfaction.
It's where they leave their luggage while they're doing stuff.
Yeah. The reservation process drives about 3 to 4% of overall guest satisfaction, which is really crazy. And people will fight to the death about that. Oh, it's so important to go. Right, but this is a regression analysis. This is
so
what the customers are telling us.
The owners about it.
Right.
About that way.
Well,
but boy, the way and again, what you want to do as a hotel owner and a hotel operator, to improve, you have to hit on the areas where there's opportunity for improvement. If everybody's performing at 99% and everybody's doing the same, you aren't going to be able to leap ahead,
so
at least
I want to give an exception,
so
just in case anyone here is like listening to this show thinking, oh, I'm going to go buy some Yankee candles and put them in all my rooms. You can go the wrong way with scent, and I'll give you
sure.
I will give you the perfect. It's MGM's property at City Center, the high-end one. It's the one that had all the room automation first. I can't think of the name. Aria. So I cannot stand spending more than 3 to 5 minutes anywhere in that property because of how strong the vanilla scent they pump into it. It makes me sick. It I feel nauseated the entire time I'm on that property, and all the rooms smell like vanilla. Your clothes smell like vanilla. After spending a few hours in that property, you need to dial it back. Dial it back, because to people who are sensitive to perfumes, it's torture.
Right.
Clean linen, summer breeze, just
right.
Yeah, but strong scent.
Right, of course.
Strong scent is usually a con, no matter which direction
Well,
you're going in.
Yeah, exactly.
Strong scent. You want to be mild scent at the
So
most.
Stuart,
I'm even sensitive to Febreze, which is just supposed to be removing scents. But we tried that once in on a couch, and I had to leave the room. I was so offended by it.
I'm gonna since we're doing the bingo card game, I'm gonna do a bingo card thing. I got into an argument with one of our brand managers in my time at Wyndham, which, let's be fair, at the time that was Sendent when this occurred. I'm not gonna out the brand or the brand manager, but it's Robert, what you just said about the booking experience and things like that is exactly right. This one brand was lagging the others in the family, right? They all had conversion rates that were comparable based on where their locations were. Obviously, the more geographic distribution we had, the higher conversion rate we had because we got to say yes. But we shared the same booking engine across. And this person was complaining that there were problems with the website that were causing people not to book. And we did a fairly comprehensive study, and I was able to go back in this argument and say, look, I hear everything you're saying. I said, the problem with your brand compared to all of the rest in our family of brands is not that people will not stay there. It is that people will never stay there twice.
Because of the wet dog smell.
Exactly. Yeah. They would book online at the same ratio as we would expect. We were doing everything we could to drive new customers into the place. The thing is, we were running out of people to find who hadn't heard how awful it was.
Yeah.
There's a certain universe after a certain point. I can only do so much.
So, Stuart, being from New Guinea, which is your turnoffs? Squishy wet carpet underneath of the wall air unit, or vanilla smell in the room? Which is Stewie's current turnoffs here?
Yeah, odors get me every time. I'm not a big fan.
I'll tell you, that's one of it. And then the other, there's the death by 1,000 paper cuts that some of these older properties have. And I'll give you a perfect example. A brand, I guess they're a pseudo brand because they're more of a management company than a brand. But we work with all of their properties, and they recently bought 2 properties in St. Petersburg, Florida. And I took the family to one of them where the room was great. Like, yeah, was it old? Sure. But the room was great. The view was amazing. But then the rest of the property was a death of 1,000 paper cuts. Standing out by the pool, all of a sudden you get a ice cold drip of water hit you on the head because all the AC units are dripping down the side of the building. And you can see the orange rust from it, and that water just hit you.
That's an old school mister, Ed.
Yeah. Listen, had it been air temperature, I think it would have been less bad. The fact that it was ice cold made you just like, what was that? The elevators were a bit rickety. Again, nothing wrong with them, but the ricketiness of them made them feel somewhat unsafe, to where you read the elevator inspection card. And it was just a series of details that each one individually low cost to address. Like the elevator, even if you had to put some sound deadening material behind the wood panels, and it would cut down the noise substantially. The dripping from the air conditioning units into a common area, like gutter system if you have to. The ADA compliant pool lift thing, you put it in the worst possible place. It's where there's the least amount of traffic clearance. Put it on the other side, and it makes that area. There was so many parts of the building that I looked at and was just like, man, you're so close. And I have a feeling that in this budget realm, OYO is going to be facing a lot of these properties aren't the silver bullet, put a new bed in, put a new air conditioning unit in. It's going to be the death of 1,000 paper cuts. It's, what? You can't put the 90th coat of paint on these walls. You got to scrape the walls back because they look so gross from 90 coats of paint that they've had. And it's convincing owners that that's a worthwhile endeavor.
Well,
Right.
and this is a place, and I know I've told this story a ton of times on the show. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but just the concept. I say this a lot of if you're experiencing any softness, cool. Use that to your advantage. Take some rooms out of service and fix them. If you're not going to fill them anyway, get them in better shape and do it on a rolling basis.
Tear the drop ceiling out. Just tear the drop ceiling out.
But you don't have to do all the rooms in the property in 1 year. Spread it over 3 years, and
Right.
But let's ask Lily from a revenue management perspective, because you want to do that when you're kind of at high occupancy and you're performing well and things like
I'm
things
saying
like that. I mean, you don't want to
softness.
Well, no, but
right.
But
Take
again,
advantage of the softness.
You can take advantage of the softness, but you also want to do that when you have money to do it, right?
Well,
it's not
sure.
like, things are turned down. So, but there will be
theoretically, like
pressure
most
from
hotels,
revenue management to not do that, right?
Oh, no.
Defer.
Revenue management always wants you to renovate your hotel. It makes our job easier. And definitely a preventive maintenance program. It still shocks me how many people don't have this. It drives me insane. But I think that, theoretically, Robert, hotels are not operating on a cash basis accounting system, so they don't necessarily need to make the cash in the month that they're, making the investment.
Right.
But they do need to budget accordingly. So that's something to look at for 2020 is, think about this when you're looking at your soft periods and budget labor that's not necessarily based on your budget of rooms sold when you're looking at your PM program. And I think a lot of people forget to do that. I think they're, looking at this accrual off of rooms sold, which is certainly appropriate to your day-to-day operation. But I almost kind of look at a PM program as a fixed cost. It's something you should be doing year round, no matter how busy you are. So maybe you push it more to the soft periods. But then there's also the question of what impacts your revenue more. If you take, one room out of service for 2 days in the middle of a busy period and you just do 1 or 2 rooms at a time, is that better if you're the type of hotel that runs at almost 100% occupancy for 6 straight months than waiting 6 months to fix the issues in the room, because it's going to impact your review scores. And really, I mean, that's where we're getting to see people are starting to realize that marketing and revenue management in many cases aren't any different from each other. I'm plugging things more into spreadsheets. You guys are plugging things more into images, whatever the case may be. But that one cannot exist without the other, because revenue management funds marketing and marketing backs up revenue management. So you really can't operate in a vacuum anymore.
They are the same discipline, and they need to work together.
Now, there's a package you can buy from
too small
Fuel.
thing.
There's a package you can buy from Fuel that allows you to not have marketing at all, so that it's just revenue management.
What is that?
Wait.
What are you talking about?
No,
Too
wait.
quiet, Stuart. I had to work you in.
I thought you had the other Fuel thing where Stuart comes in the French maid's outfit and cleans your hotel room. That's a very popular one that you have to schedule well in advance.
Yeah, and then you don't have to worry about revenue management because no guests want to come stay.
Listening to all the dialogue, I will go back to one thing. When your passionate people turn quiet, you should be concerned. This goes back to a story way back when I first started working with Ocean Properties, and I was at the Marriott Owners Conference, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And I'm walking around, and of course all the important people want to talk to the important people. Well, this young gentleman came up to me, and he's like, so what are you here for? And we're talking, and he's excited. He and his family were going to be having their first Marriott. They were going to decide to sign the Marriott contract. They were invited to this conference to become a part of the Marriott family. Okay. So he all bright-eyed,
and you were the first person that he met.
Yeah, I know. Sad, right?
So
anyway,
independent hotelier now, huh?
So anyway, he's walking around trying to find out who's who and what's what, and he sees some important people. I'm not going to name them out. That these, he's like, oh, I won't go say hi to him. And I was by them when he goes up and says hi. This, and they said, okay, hi. And he said, yeah, we were thinking about building and I think at the time it was a courtyard or something. Oh, good for you. And kept on talking.
Oh.
Saw him at the IHG conference.
Yeah.
Guess where they built was IHG hotels. that one moment changed their decision to say, boom.
And as well it should.
As well it should.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it leads me to, I'm really curious to see how things play out in the next 5 or 10 years for Marriott, to be completely honest, because with the acquisition of Starwood, and they're still doing other acquisitions, they're trying to focus on vacation rentals in a way, and they have all of these things going on, but there's a lot of unhappy operators out there right now because they don't feel heard, which is exactly the point. They have this kind of mandate out there about who you can and can't work with. They have so many rules. Marriott loves control. And there's pros and cons to that, right? Because they don't suffer. Like, nobody says, oh yeah, I went to this, really dilapidated courtyard the other day. It doesn't happen to them nearly as often. And so there's pros to that for sure, but a lot of people feel like they're pushing the envelope too far in control and restricting competition within their own services or within the things that they can provide. And I've got to wonder, especially since now a lot of hotels are competing with other Marriotts in their markets. They can't even run a decent star report in many cases. They have to pick a fake comp set because there's too many Marriott rooms in their comp set. So at what point do operators say enough is enough and start either going independent or reflagging to a different brand because it's untenuous?
So when do you think one of these brands is going to take a stance that they will not franchise to REITs? So the brand that actually answers the owners. You laugh about that, but actually in the restaurant world, franchises that require owner-operator are way more prevalent than absentee owner.
I have a question. Does Magnuson allow REITs?
I don't know.
I bet you Magnuson's already doing it.
Yeah, that would make sense.
That would be my guess.
You think they've outlawed? I don't think they would outlaw them.
I don't.
I don't think
they certainly aren't
that way.
Yeah,
they're certainly not going after them.
Operator requirement wouldn't be unheard of.
Well, Outback was the first in the food.
That's Best Western too, probably.
Yeah,
Best Western and Magnuson are probably the ones where where it's whether it's explicit or not, it's probably happening.
Right.
So well, I got a question for Lily. So you've got Marriott in Manhattan, which has 90 properties, versus Hilton that has 13. In a downturn, any issues for Marriott figuring out how to feed those guys?
To be fair, Hilton doesn't own a single one of those rooms, and neither does Marriott anymore.
Neither does Marriott either.
Neither of them are going to feel the financial pinch of it until an upswing's coming, when those hoteliers may be moving on from their flags.
Yeah.
Right.
And
so that's tomorrow them problem.
In New York, they could go independent easily.
Yeah. And New York too, it's gonna suffer a little bit less, just like we were talking about the markets that are gonna suffer less with the whole Brand USA, situation. Things are going to continue to some degree, although more price sensitive guests may look at other destinations. So there's that. But I don't know that it's a question of brand as much as it's a question of the penetration of scale in the market, because it's the same thing that we always see. Luxury starts playing in the upper upscale pricing, upper upscale starts playing in upscale. Everybody shifts down 1 to 2 scales in their pricing. Right. And so the properties that tend to suffer the most are your select service. And I think that with the proliferation of that scale across the entire U.S. recently, that could be and that may be your big issue for those.
Brands. Because most of these brands, their growth is all select service.
Yeah, that's right.
They only really like to talk about the stuff that is the really cool and pretty and all of that. But in reality, the majority of their key growth is the select service.
Yeah, but I'm going to say the negative part of this, because the people who will actually suffer are not going to be the brands, right? The brands will take a hit. The people who will suffer are going to be the franchisees who don't make it.
The owners.
Are the owners who don't make it. Let's be really fair about what's actually going to happen there. You're going to have folks who can't make their note, and they're going to default.
And then the banks are going to suffer. We can't have banks suffering.
So here's what I want to know though, and why I think this downturn might be different for hospitality than the last one, right? Like depending what it is that actually triggers the recession, if it's softening of the market, if we have a black swan event, nobody really knows what's going on right now. But I think that the thing that will be different is that travel and experiences, because of the millennial generation, has become more of sort of a requirement for this generation. Like they're going to place
even when they're broke. So maybe
they're going to place it higher as a priority in their budget.
So the walkaway point with this, so everyone understands this, is you don't have to worry about a downturn. The millennials gotcha.
Wouldn't that be ironic?
By the way,
actually, there's
it's possible.
That, you know, all the stories about millennials being broke. I think we're talking about a very specific subset of millennials. There is
they were
also
the ones that
an
are
affluent millennial.
Right. Well, and they're the ones who are broke are the same ones that created the stereotypical millennial.
Oh, for sure.
And that was like it was inside it was a generation inside that generation. It's an
modern day hippies.
Right.
They
lived with their parents.
It's really no different. Not everybody who, was in their 20s in the 60s or 70s was a hippie.
Wait, Tim, were you a hippie?
Hey, hold up. You got the wrong guy
Robert,
here.
were you
Robert, there you go. Remember, I'm the generation here that nobody gives a crap about because I'm Gen X.
I'm Gen X.
Wait, hold on. You just are. You just make it in
I'm
a
cusper. That's right.
You're a cusper, but you are Gen X for sure.
I am.
We're the generation nobody gives a rat's ass about.
When I was 9, I had a peace sign necklace. I was pretty.
All right. So first, I want to say two quick things, and I'm going to do my old dialogue and dash because I have to bolt at one. But
it's his George Costanza.
I always say, and I would love for this to catch on. I hate when people use the phrase millennials. I always talk about adults under 40. Like this is just they're grown-ups, folks. 23 to 38. These are adults under 40. But the second thing is, at least all the consensus, and I'm getting this from a variety of places, and I will get more next week. I won't be on next week's show, unfortunately, but next week I will be at the conference board. I do a lot of work with them. And I'll actually be sitting down with one of their economists who's studying what's going on, and I want to hear what he has to say relative to what I've been hearing from a lot of other folks. The consensus is that if we have a recession, first of all, we have to make a distinction between a recession and between growth slowing down.
Right.
If you're still growing, you're not in a recession. It's just we may only get slower growth as opposed to a recession, and it might be. And it might be a lot slower growth. It might be 1%.
Yeah, you may be a stall. Right.
That's what I see right now.
And that tends to be the consensus, is that it is more likely we will stall than actually go into a recession.
Right.
But if we do go into an actual recession, it's going to be, a more traditional style rather than the 2008 or the 2001
a normal
style.
Economic easing versus
Correct.
a trigger-based event that set off a chain effect that crushed entire economies.
Correct. And historically in the hotel industry, and Robert is usually our resident historian, but historically in the hotel industry, when we have a recession, it's not a national thing.
Right.
It is a market-based thing. So some markets will get hit, hard. Some markets will get hit. Some markets will actually be growing faster than the economy. And that's probably, at least from everything I'm hearing, and I'm literally working on a piece right now for my clients of rounding up all the stuff we can get our hands on, and that seems to be the consensus estimate. Could there be a trigger-based event? Could there be terrorism? Could the election go weird? Could we have a civil war? Sure, any of those are theoretically possible, but
But I mean, I heard it put best is it's more likely that the type of recession that we will experience will be the type that we don't recognize it happened until we're almost out of it.
Right. Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Ed. Folks, I apologize. I have to bolt.
Mr. Tim, if people want to know more about you, where is it they can find you, sir?
Well, they can find everything they want to know about me at flip2.to. No, timpeter.com, at tcpeter on Twitter, but usually Tim Peter on everywhere else that matters.
And if they want to find the contents of the internet,
Yes.
the Tim Peter blog.
/internet.
There still is, by the way. I think it's still live. I probably need to go in and clean this up one of these days, but I'm pretty sure there still is a timpeter.com/flip2. All right, folks, it is always a pleasure. Lily, I'm thrilled you're here. This was great. Looking forward to the ongoing dialogue. I will see you all in 2 weeks, but I am out next week. So cheers, everybody. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Right, bye now.
Yeah.
Hey, just we were talking about hotel price for the HSMAI marketing conference in January. Sorry, Marriott Marquis. I can't remember what the group rate is. It's like $290 or so, I don't know, $240. 4-star hotels in Times Square now selling $71 a night for that one.
But here's the
And
thing.
we're out how many?
Those are mostly Highgates, and they're 4-star hotels.
Yeah.
They're solid upper 3-star hotels that are calling themselves 4-star hotels, and for that price point, they're worth doing.
Right.
But they are.
Oh yeah.
It's Highgate's collection of hotels. Like they own that entire area. I'm surprised they haven't taken over the Marquis.
You've got. I don't know if the Gallivant.
That is a Highgate.
It is a Highgate, yeah. So the Gallivant's in there. Yotel's a little off the beaten path, but yeah, it's amazing. But even Intercontinental Times Square is. Oh no, they're way up.
Well, unless you buy them under OPEG.
$210 a night.
But under OPEG, I bet you it's $65 a night.
Yeah, exactly.
But Robert, you should pay the extra $100+ just to support the conference itself in the room block.
Yeah, right.
That doesn't have anything to do with supporting the conference.
So when did the digital marketing conference turn into the marketing conference? Was that this year's change?
This year, yeah. But they've got the tagline marketing in a digital world or something just to kind of transition.
Yes. Just so no one gets confused and doesn't show up.
Right.
And Stu, you said, Robert's the old guard leaving, and you're the new guard coming in on this. I mean, you said you were
on the advisory board. Yeah.
Yeah. You said that things went very well. You liked the segmentation of the board and
how
they're approaching things.
They've basically broken it up into 4 work groups. So they've got a thought leadership group, which Bob is heading up. They've got
Bob from HSMAI.
From HSMAI. Because there's a liaison from HSMAI in each of the groups, I guess. So he's that. The actual chair is Olga from Sendine. I've not met her. She didn't make the retreat, but she's on that. I'm on that thought leadership group as well. And then we have the CHDM group, which Holly's been on for I think 400 years now. I mean, it's Holly's not a day over 21, but she's been on that. 100 years.
And that's why
it's good time management.
That's right. And then they have a marketing subgroup, which is focusing on just the positioning and the communication side of HSMAI. And then they have a conference-specific group as well. Yeah. And they're really evaluating. They're really trying to get into this concept of calling this like something like Marketing Week, because you've got a lot of things going on that week. You've got the CHDM training. You've got the Adrian Awards. You've got some roundtables. There's the resort roundtables, and I want to say the CMO roundtables are that week as well as the conference. So really trying to blow it out.
Yep.
Do you make that, Lily? Do you make it to the conference, the former marketing?
I hope so. I was actually just looking at that this week and debating. I've gotten so many great conference invites. It's January this year.
January 22nd, I think, or something.
I'd like to be there because we are doing a lot more with marketing. So it's the first year I'm kind of looking at possibly attending. But as we were saying about how important revenue management and marketing are to be together, it's definitely higher on my priority list for conferences in 2020.
Yeah, it always has one. Conference being pretty solid always.
Yeah.
And plus, we always cover it live. So if you do happen to join us or join the conference, we do a live coverage of it. So you're now that you're part of the gang, that you get to go over and hop on outside if you want to with us and recap some of the sessions that are going on and stuff. We do a live broadcast in there.
Yep.
And if you do go, you can help me carry all the awards that Field
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thanks
So-
from
so-
Adrian's.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the Indian Awards.
I'm going to brag a little bit. We've never entered the Adrians before because we've never really, thought much about award ceremonies in
But
general.
you've hired a proper PR firm now, so
We
you have
we
to do
hired a
things
PR
like that.
firm, and one of the things they recommend is like you've got to go after some awards, just to add to your credentials. So we're like, sure, we'll give it a shot. So we entered, I think 8, and we ended up winning 7, including 2 gold. So one of which was the Fuel Hotel Marketing Podcast. So now we are an award-winning podcast. We can say. It's kind of fun.
Where can they find this podcast, Mr. Stewart?
Oh, anyway you want to look, really. fueltravel.com/podcast, Apple, Google, anywhere really.
Stuart,
marketing,
just hot tip on how to get platinum next year for the podcast. You have to claim that you burned $7 million.
Exactly.
Well, so I checked this. So I got misinformation from Mr. Lauren Gray. So I was under the impression that they don't announce platinums until the actual awards show. And then Lauren contradicted that and said, no, they'll give you a little heads up.
Yeah, they'll tell you because they want to make sure you're going to be there.
They want to make sure you show up. Yeah.
No, so Tim is on the board, on the group that actually selects the platinums.
Yep, he's been on the team.
And he said they will tell you have a gold because you get a gold, but you may also get a platinum. That's decided by selecting.
They have changed.
They select the platinums from the gold.
Unless Stuart. Oh, wait, Stuart. Unless that was the heads up.
Well, maybe so.
No.
I know
I
to ask him, and he was very gentlemanly. He said he was under an NDA, but he would consider this a friend-DA with me, and he gave me how the process works a little bit, but he would not divulge any information. So I'm none the wiser to either of our gold or platinum.
I've been a platinum judge on that too, and so the process is you only look at the golds, right? Mm-hmm, so that's the thing. You go through that, and then you do, and there's no limit on the number of platinums. You can have a lot of platinums. It kind of depends on how
as long as there are enough big budget DMO spends, enough Hilton and Marriott campaigns submitted. And maybe squeeze in something an OTA did.
Honestly, that is.
Show me a platinum.
Distressing. Yeah.
Show me a platinum outside of those groups.
Yeah.
Hey, back when I was back 12, 14 years ago, we actually had it where platinums were not announced, and that we would tell people that for the submission, and then there would be a surprise at the conference. So obviously, generationally, this has slowly changed in progress because we had to look at everybody to do a platinum. It was not you didn't get a gold and then went on. You literally were not told what you won until the event itself.
Now, the question will be, does TravelClick win a platinum this year because of the amount of money they pump into HSMAI?
Oh, see, no, that's not nice.
Not really.
I'm just curious.
No, actually, to reveal the process, there were, at least when I did it, for the digital, advertising and things like that. I can't remember. They have PRs in one, and then it's kind of like digital and advertising. But there were 3 of us, and at least my year, it was somebody from Google, somebody from USA Today, and me, right? Yeah. And there was not really pressure from here's this, here's that. We really dug that. And actually, I think we did a pretty good job on not, putting thumbs on the scale for any. Actually, it was Intercontinental for their video series with the with the concierges, the local concierges describing their local areas, which were great. Their video program is very early on. It was good, but I think they do tip them off because they want them there to accept them, and so I think the process is if they haven't registered, then they give them a little nudge, like you really will want to be there type thing. But if they do register, they're probably surprised, right?
Well, I've already planned that I'm going to Kanye West this. Whoever wins a platinum, I'm going to jump up in front of.
That is a great strategy.
Maybe that performance will win an award year.
Oh, it could be just that. It could be just
hijacking the Adrians. Yeah, that's a good marketing.
So, did you get some time?
Either that or a Me Too suit. So yeah.
I don't see that going down too long.
Robert's list long enough to figure out if you had a favorite article that we didn't hit. Since we're
I want to talk about Google. Can we talk about Google?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm also here to learn, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on the BERT update and the baby algorithms, which I had to look at, by the way, to make sure it wasn't actually about babies.
That's right.
Just built by them.
Yeah.
What would you like? I'm going to go grab the clip. The bird update. Go ahead.
Yeah, so BERT is basically Google getting even smarter, getting closer to Cyberdyne by the day. So BERT is a part of the algorithm that looks bidirectionally at the string and really understands the semantics of what you're saying by looking at the context of every word and how it affects each word. So it just basically means that words that a year ago it would had a hard time interpreting because there's potentially confusion because words can mean different things. Now Google's really freaking smart about understanding.
Right. I mean, and I love their example, how to fish for cow.
Yeah. How to cow fish.
Great.
When cow is a it's a colloquialism for a type of bass, a striped bass, right? And they literally showed the search results from before this update came out and after, and it was before it returned results about cows and after it returned results about fishing because it understood that fishing impacted the meaning of cow.
Yeah, what cow means to fishing.
The BERT stands for like it's bidirectional encoder transformation. What is it? Representations from transformers. So it's basically saying each word within there can transform the other word, the meaning of the other words. And the really cool thing is Google's made this open source, so you can actually leverage this technology in whatever kind of system you have if you're doing some kind of semantic checking or trying to understand the context of people searching on your website or whatever it is. But it's a big deal because it means that Google's getting further and further away from just focusing on keywords, and it's getting more and more focused on intent. Meaning, right?
Which means we can finally have websites that are written to be quality for the person reading them, and not written
for the game. Not the Google bot.
And it parlays into the baby algorithm thing. So that second article was talking about how not every vertical or type or grouping of keywords is treated the same way. The factors, the hundreds and hundreds of factors that go into what ranks where can be different depending on the keyword. So, certain verticals, like if searching for hotels, they may look more favorably at site speed, for example, whereas if you're looking for the answer to a question, site speed may not be quite as important, right? So it just basically means that the algorithm is tweaked based on what you're searching for. Now, I think I'm going to push back on the article a little bit because the guy started out by saying that you shouldn't chase the algorithm, that a lot of people used to do that, and that you could game it for a certain period of time, but it never lasted a long time, right? And now he's saying, so instead of chasing the algorithm, chase all the little different algorithms based on the vertical that you're going
on your vertical,
which I fundamentally disagree with, right? The basic of SEO today is understanding the end game, what Google's trying to accomplish, which is they're trying to match searcher intent, which they're understanding better because of BERT, good old BERT, with the best, most valuable, relevant content for that consumer.
Right. So the relevant content that is served efficiently and structured well.
Right.
So this
with the best content.
Furthers the point for hoteliers to put more onus on high quality content that serves the type of traveler you see. So if you are in Key West, writing blogs about different things where fishermen are going to be asking questions about the best places to go out and things like that. Being the answer there can actually get you positioned really well to serve that fisherman and potentially house that fisherman.
Yeah.
Well, to me, I think the interpretation of this is being, to your point, Ed, about the content. It's going to declutter a lot of the Sunny and 72 posts that go out there, where you see businesses that they put content out that's only directed towards buy my product. I have a room. Here's a rate. This is where we are, and it's all directed towards the buy and travel. Where if you put content related to what people are looking for, it's not so much the intent the person is looking for travel. There's, as I think there was in the news recently, they talked about the fact that more people dream about travel than they actually do travel. They don't even take their vacation days. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of the discovery and interest level has nothing to do with me trying to find a hotel room, but it does have a lot to do with me finding information about places that I'm dreaming about or thinking about or aspirationally desiring. And if I can begin to get into that quantitative conversation with them as a source of information by putting good content out, then that's really going to be the driving force. It's not about whether you discover my site for the right keywords. It's that you discover my site because I happen to have information you were interested in. Again, back to the consumer use.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's that you're interesting and is valuable or helpful to you. You know, I think one of the exercises we go through early on when we pick up an account on the SEO side, because it's a service we provide, is we start just listing all the questions they ever get asked over the phone, in person. You know, if they have a search on their website, whatever's being typed in there, talking to all the staff members, and just figure out what are the questions, what are the blocks to people being able to make a decision with your property, what do they really care about, and then from there you can kind of organize it and structure it, and then start creating content that's actually valuable to people because it's answering the questions that they went to Google to type in.
And ironically, if you want a really good example that's surprising on this type of business's understanding and the importance of content is, so not many people know, but I am a car nut. I love just all cars. I like researching cars that I'll never buy. I love cars. And over the last couple of years, car dealerships have become incredible at producing video content that deep dives into the nerdiest elements of the most mundane cars. And they produce them not as come here and buy, come and buy, come and buy. They're actually producing it as a way to help people who are looking to buy a Toyota Prius and are comparing it to something else, that are trying to understand the difference in model years and things like that. And they're great videos. And when you search a specific model of car, majority of the videos you will find are actually produced by car dealerships, but they don't at all feel like they were produced by car dealerships. And I think it's a strategy to think about in your content marketing is, all right, so there are people who need education before making a purchase decision. There is value in helping educate those people about traveling with kids for the first time. You know, listen, living in Orlando, I can tell you there are so many people who have absolutely never been through a security line in the airport. So start producing content to educate people on how to de-stress that. Because I see it, like they all come to Orlando, I think, for their first vacation. There are parts of travel that we're all professional travelers. We could come up with quality content that answers questions. And if you are making someone's life better, they will show interest in your business.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of people fall short. You know, it's all about, what do I want to tell them about me? But if you can tell them more about the destination through this type of marketing, you're going to reap the benefits of the businesses around you. I mean, even last week, I got an email about the top restaurants in the world, which unfortunately, out of the top 25, only one was in the US. But for those who, I know that we're broadcasting worldwide, so for those who are listening, you should look up that list, because if you're in the vicinity of one of the best restaurants in the world, you better put something about that on your website right now, because now is when they're getting the hits. Now is when they're getting the traffic. Do something reciprocal with the restaurant if you can, so you can be on their website. But in the absence of that, start using the algorithm in order to tag yourself to that popular destination that's nearby you and drive more traffic to your own site.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's a really good book.
What are the demand drivers?
There's a really good book by Jay Baer called Utility, so Y-O Utility, and he talks a lot about the concept of helping, not selling. And he goes through a case study of a pool manufacturer, fiberglass pool manufacturer, that almost went out of business. And they took the approach of, let's just be helpful and answer every question people have ever had about fiberglass pools. And now they're the biggest fiberglass pool manufacturer and distributor and installer in the United States. And it all started by them saying, okay, how can we help people and start ranking better on search engines?
And understand, I mean, so we're in an experiment that Stuart's pretty aware of, where we're playing with a part of the e-commerce funnel, and we've taken a stance of no promotional messaging whatsoever in this part of the e-commerce funnel to see if you can accomplish what people think promotional messaging does, and actually be better. And we're finding, one, the answer is yes. B, there are anomalies that we don't understand. I was actually talking to Stuart about it yesterday. We're seeing a higher spend per reservation on the people who go through this path. And we didn't intend to do that. So we don't understand why it's happening. We're still working on it. But you do need to challenge your thinking. It's not all about the quick hit. It's not all, I only have 2 seconds with someone, so I have to tell them I will give them the cheapest rate, or I'm here and stay with me because I'm the best. No, sometimes it's about conversation, and conversation doesn't get interrupted with, and by the way, if you're interested, I am screwing myself on rate next weekend. So yeah.
Well, and slide in and a pop up and a pop under, and when I leave.
Right, but it's understanding. It's understanding the customer and their objectives. I mean, you got people. You're talking about Key West, right? I'm sure there are some people who go to Key West one year and then they go skiing in Aspen the next, over the Christmas holidays or something like that, right?
Right.
And that's just their pattern. Right. And so you have to understand, why are people here? And you can't just sell them. But that's a really good thing that if you're, it doesn't matter if you're Aspen or Jackson Hole or Sun Valley, you're out there saying, hey, unbelievable snow conditions. Look at this. We're having a great season, or how to do things, new lifts or new this or new restaurant.
Traveling
that's going on.
Skis.
Right.
This is the thing.
Whatever it may be.
Whatever destination you are, there are reasons people come there, and there are people who are interested in those reasons.
Right.
But aren't planning travel. So
Yeah.
how do you engage the people who are interested in the thing? Take the fact that you know a lot about this stuff, because if you grow up adjacent to something popular, you end up knowing a lot about it. I know a ton about doing the theme parks because I've lived here for so long. I worked at one of them for a while. You have so much expertise on things that people are interested in that is so before the travel plan. That if you win, then if you add value, all of a sudden someone who's looking up a fishing lure and why one type of fishing lure is more effective than another on a specific species of fish, and you happen to be a hotel where that species of fish is where the best fishing is, answer the question about why the fishing lure is the better solution over common thought. And all of a sudden, those people, they're interested in that type of fishing. You're
building a relationship.
Right. Building a relationship, they're gonna come stay with you.
Right.
Or knowing the local outfitter who can get
Right.
them to do that. Yeah. Or knowing the outfitter or the tackle shop or the bait shop, whatever it may be. Just saying, this is why people come here. This is the extra. And it may be a small niche. And maybe there is a little landing page on your site, or there's a blog post that references that points to the landing page, which ties into what.
Right.
And there's a really easy way. If you don't know why people are coming to stay at your property, go have conversations with them. Talk to them. With your mouth open.
No.
It's revolutionary.
What crazy talk.
I mean, this is the kind of thing that could win a platinum award at the Adrian's. But go have conversation with your guests.
No, because Stuart, we don't listen to learn. We listen to respond.
That's right. Actually, we're responding before we listen.
The general manager needs to be at their desk on their phone, talking to corporate or the regional person, or looking at a spreadsheet. They do not interact with those guys.
Behind the gatekeeper. Don't get behind the gatekeeper.
They're going to come back and tell you things that are wrong that you're going to have to fix and be. No, your day is going to be so much worse. Just leave that to somebody else. You're paying people to talk to those guys.
Okay. Speaking of worse, the rut row. I'm sorry, I got distracted because I didn't read the whole article. I read half of it.
I read the whole article.
I read the whole article, and I'm like,
really well written. Very funny.
Oh yeah.
So Lily. The rut row this week was a non-travel writer who got screwed, got totally grifted on an Airbnb scam. And through just poking at it, actually realized it was like a massive like network.
Business model. It's a business model.
Sure. Kind of like, buy me $500 in gift cards and scratch off the number on the back.
Right.
That's a business model too. But yeah, absolutely. It's funny that was included because thankfully I read it yesterday because it's a very, very, very long piece.
Super long.
It happened. I'm like, oh yeah. But then I'm like, oh my God, it got big.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really interesting because this guy went to a lot of trouble to like track down other guests and whatnot. And I don't have that much time in my life, so I'm glad that they do. But a couple things I took out of that. Number one, be smart. Don't click on the link in the phishing email.
Right.
Don't buy gift cards and scratch off the back. Correct. And don't accept a switch to your Airbnb via photos somebody sends you over text.
Yeah.
That's
Although I will say, here's the funny thing. The one time I Airbnb'd was to set up a house in Clearwater for my whole family to go to. Like, we needed a house. A hotel wasn't going to work. And it was a professionally managed property. And the property manager, in a day, shot me a note saying, hey, that property is not going to be available. The floors need to be ripped up. We need to move you. And I said, that's against Airbnb's policy. So no. So, thank you. I'm willing to walk away. And they said, okay, we understand. And it's funny. I actually ended up booking another property from that property manager. Not knowing it was them.
That actually happened to me in Nashville but it's clear, right? Like in the scenario of this article, it's supposedly some couple that is renting their home. And frankly, I'd be like, how many houses do you have in the area that you personally own? Like, that's my first red flag. Second of all is send me to the listing of this next one to look at it. Don't shoot me over a couple of photos. There's all sorts of scams where people are renting out houses that they don't even own, or, it's not just Airbnb, it's also actual rentals. It happens a lot here in Phoenix where somebody will go to the property. Somehow this person gains access to the property. They'll be shown the property, told they can move in their family. They sign a 1-year lease. They get there, and it turns out somebody else already lives there, and it has nothing to do with the person who showed it to them. This is really no different. It's kind of a buyer beware situation, and people have to realize that when they're booking on Airbnb, they're not dealing with Marriott, and they're not dealing with Hilton, and there are no guarantees, and it is up to you.
Well, and they're not dealing with, here's the thing. It doesn't have to be Marriott or Hilton. An independent hotel has laws they have to follow.
Exactly. Right. And technically, Airbnb does too, to some degree.
No,
but
because actually, as part of your agreement with Airbnb is you're agreeing that their final say on how it will be handled is acceptable, and you will not sue them for that. Like, this is the thing is, and you haven't watched this show long enough to know that I have been very anti-sharing economy because the whole label is a ruse.
It's not sharing. It's not sharing. It's how rich people are exploiting the middle and lower class people to do the things that give more money to the rich people. That's Airbnb. That's Uber. It's all these things is incredibly wealthy people taking advantage of middle America. And so with that, it's not always just the initial target that gets taken advantage of. It's also the consumer of that gets taken advantage of. And this is a case of that. This is someone who's wealthy, who had the ability to buy some dilapidated collections of buildings and throw crap furniture in them, realized that those buildings weren't marketing well, but most people, once they're on site, are just going to suck it up and not say a thing. And oh, by the way, if they stay one night, you can kick them out, so that you don't even need to give them the dilapidated building the whole time. All right, let's kick them out the next day. Say that something else moved in. Go find a hotel, and you're never going to get your money back. So see ya. And so you have to understand, Airbnb is still very much in the Wild West. In many locations, they are completely facilitating breaking the law. And so when you do business with a business that is facilitating breaking the law,
you're likely to end up in a situation that is less than friendly for you.
Well, I wouldn't say likely. Well, you're probably.
I said less than friendly. I didn't say you were going to get screwed. I said you were
Right.
likely to end up
and
in a situation that's less than friendly.
The
There's
vast
definitely a risk,
majority,
yeah.
but the vast majority of Airbnb customers have a great experience with a outrageously high, their net promoter score is like 94 to 96.
Are you sure
right?
that's not just because they're afraid that there's going to be retaliation if they get
No. When you do when you do independent net promoter score separate from it, right?
I mean, the one thing I didn't understand was
but you have a lot of risk with the bad players, and that's bad for Airbnb, right?
Yeah.
And they started off with that, and they made some very, very smart management decisions, what they need to do, and they need to get serious about it. And certainly, I don't know if it impacts their IPO or not, right? But that'd be an interesting dynamic if the investors really care. But they really need to figure out they're getting better about paying the taxes. I mean, that's really kind of on the local jurisdictions.
It's better about paying.
Yeah,
they're eventually going to have to pay all of them.
Yeah,
and they know that.
Right?
Absolutely, they know that.
They got to clean up their act if they're going to go IPO.
And they need to look at all these people who are individuals who have multiple listings and all these things, who are running pseudo distributed hotels, right?
Yep.
And that sort of thing. They've got to crack down on all that stuff. But that, I don't know what the latest AirDNA numbers are, but in some markets those guys are prevalent, right? They've got 40% of the inventory or something like that. It's just crazy, and that's the problem with that Airbnb. The top story. Yeah, how do you crack down on that in that nuanced way? And Airbnb is not going to do it themselves, right? It's got to be some sort of. It's just like the political advertising, right? Twitter this week decided they aren't going to take political ads, which is probably Dorsey mostly wanting
strategy.
Mess with Zuck, right?
No, it's not just that. It's get to step aside, because here's the thing.
Yeah.
Twitter now will not be brought to Congress for any of this crap.
Absolutely.
And the politicians aren't going to sue Twitter for not doing political advertising, because it completely neuters their ability to go after Zuck and Google and all of that for the things they don't like about being able to dump money targeted against people who can swing the vote. So no, it was brilliant. He put himself on the sideline on a no-win situation, and now he doesn't have to burn cash. He doesn't have to burn
not my monkeys.
That's right.
And Twitter's revenues are about 5 billion, and Facebook's are like, or maybe 4 billion maybe, and Facebook's are like close to 60 billion, right? Yeah. And all of them are 93% ad source in terms of their revenue. So this is a much bigger problem and pressure it's actually
the first truly strong strategic decision that I have seen Twitter make.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can blame Twitter for a lot of stuff, gosh knows, but this was probably one of the first things saying, yep, I'm out of this one.
Yep. And more importantly, he worded it so right that he can't be sued by the politicians. He's saying if your political message is strong enough, it will gain an organic reach that it earned.
Yeah. Hey, since we kind of talked,
you need your
money.
Puppet. You need your sock puppet accounts, doing all these
which grows user growth.
Fake news story. Yeah, and that's what you do to get the organic traffic.
Okay, since we kind of talked over Lily a little bit because she's not used to having to pry her way into some of our conversations. Lily, you were mentioning something. Please finish what you were mentioning.
I was so interested in what you were saying, I don't even remember, to be completely honest.
Robert has that ability. He's captivating like that.
And don't worry, if I have a strong opinion, I will just speak over you. It's all good. This was a minor opinion, which has clearly already left my brain. So
I was talking to everybody when I mentioned that you were wanting to come join us. They said, would you I think Eddie, you were the best one that made the point of it. Is like, she does realize that being a guest host versus being a regular host turns into a conversation.
You know what? I did my homework. I've watched the past episodes. I know what the show is about. We're safe, but I really felt it was important that we add just a little diversity to this group.
Yes.
So
we've tried.
The token woman and
We
the
have
token millennial.
tried.
So there you go.
Yeah.
We've tried to add women, but they just don't want to hang out with us. We've discovered it's a lot like high school all over again.
I mean, frankly, all of us are surprised that someone married us.
Yeah,
So,
really.
I mean,
exactly.
Okay.
Well, really, though, because you're in marketing, does this make you any different than the general male population, or are you just more honest about who you are?
right.
We're true to ourselves. But I'm actually scared of the show that we are coming up on the 13th, where Stephanie will come back, Stephanie Smith. Your of course will be here. Holly will be here. I would cringe at the idea if Valen actually showed in at the same time. We kicked out Robert. If Valen showed up. And if
because it'll actually be a good show.
Oh my gosh, it'll be like because I just sit back and be the peanut gallery at that point. We're like, oh, okay, go ahead.
Well, the other thing is Stephanie and Holly and I all like each other, so it's hard to say if it will just be like too much love in the room, or if we'll actually, argue with each other for sales.
Because here's the thing: understand, all of us really like each other. We actually speak to each other multiple times a week.
I know, but we're setting up this particular show, right? We're talking about sales, marketing, and revenue, and how right now they're still kind of siloed and at odds in a lot of cases. And so I think a lot of people will be tuning in kind of expecting a little bit of a death match between these three disciplines.
And we'll be there.
Reality,
with the barkers, as the barkers, like, come on, you're gonna let her say that?
You guys are gonna have to be the instigators and throw in
Well, Robert left, so I guess I get to do his closing thing. Is if you want to know anything about the internet, go to his Twitter campaign on.
Follow Rock Cheetah on Twitter if you want to flood your phone to the point that it will crash. Because of the amount of notifications.
Because he ties a lot of stuff to it. But
if you want to see Robert as a human being, his Facebook follow is pretty strong. He's quite the family guy. Does a lot of interesting concerts with the kids. It's a
I drop off and all of a sudden they're talking about me.
His Twitter, you
know the rule.
We thought you died. This is your eulogy.
Yeah. And you missed all the negative stuff. I was defending you.
Yeah. It was all the positive stuff too. No.
Yeah. He's pretty stupid, but he talks a lot. Yeah. So.
No, that's smiling. No. You can't take that from me, Robert. No, actually, Robert is quite humorous, very dry sense of humor. In the letter that he sends out, the curated list and so forth, will always make you smile before you look at the content pieces because he has a great wit. Which, by the way, Stuart, we got to make sure stays ad infinitum that you have to assume that mantle of shared distribution on the board, on the board, the marketing board, keeping the new name to make sure that they get the same list and so forth. I'm going to check with Julie. She just called me in the middle of the show. I got to call her back because I'm doing some video work for her.
Yeah, but I think everyone likes it, so I would assume Robert would continue to.
Yeah, I think this.
I've got to
put that on.
I've got to change it a little bit so people's. Like I always just published everybody's emails because everybody's bored. Right? I got to do some of that. Yeah, I got to go do all that.
On the CC. And Lily, by all means, as you get, we said, we talk to each other all week in different things and so forth. Any ideas for topics, information, things you think we don't want to make sure we miss or anything, shoot them over to Robert so they definitely get included to it. But definitely, you'll see the dialogue as we go each week. It's a lot of fun. We can't keep up with each.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I think I got a suggestion for one in mid-May. Yeah,
that was exactly.
There's a lot of really contributing.
To be fair, last week I put in a suggested article and it did not make the list.
And I did as well.
Oh, it's a cover now.
This is an Airbnb level conspiracy.
Well, hopefully in about 2 weeks, because I'm going to miss next week. I'm actually going to the Fast Company Innovation Festival in New York City next week. So hopefully it's my first time there, but hopefully there will be some good content. And if so, I'm happy to bring back some tidbits to discuss in 2 weeks. weeks.
Well, so if you're going to do that now, in 2 weeks, we're going to have to use the new platform, right, Lauren?
Potentially, it'll be up and running by then. Yeah, hopefully next
So
week.
Lily, here's what would be awesome. And
Potentially.
you could really do something cool. While you're out there, do a recorded remote from the Fast Company that we can then discuss after, and we'll show the video on the live show, and then we'll talk about your points.
Yeah, for sure. How do you want me to record that?
Whatever way you want.
Any particular platform?
I would just use your phone. And send it to Lauren just in case.
Yeah.
But I think that would be cool because that new platform sharing functionality was much better than this one's. And it allowed us to all still be little cells around the sharing. Yeah. So we could be like the talking heads on TV.
It's a Mystery Science Theater 3000. That's right.
I'll be the so you can interrupt me live and in the video at the same time. Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
No, Lily, I think the production values are increasing. I think you need to hire a New York City film crew.
Okay,
and
I'll get right
maybe
on that.
we want at least 2 or 3 cameras, different angles. Yeah, it'd really be pretty.
You need a key grip.
Maybe a steady cam, something like that would be really good.
Yes, and a best boy.
Yeah, the best boy. Yeah. Well, since you are the representative female of the group today, you get to go first as to if people want to know more about what you do and who you are, where is it they can find you, Lily?
They can find me at tcrmservices.com. And I am the CEO of Total Customized Revenue Management. We do revenue management consulting for the hospitality industry.
Mr. Roberts, since we were talking bad about you, which is the rule when you're not here.
I'll have to play that back.
Probably don't want to.
I can deny everything anyone's ever said about me. That's probably a good personal policy. So anyway, rockcheetah.com or Robert K. Cole. And all I do is the only thing I now do is prepare a list of news topics for this show that do not get covered generally. But we did get to a couple today. So.
And Mr. Stewart, who couldn't get, I couldn't get a word in edgewise because you're talking so much today, but I mean, thanks for hearing.
I stay out of the conversations where I'm not that knowledgeable. Unlike Ed, who's going to have an opinion on everything. When you get into the brand stuff, I listen and learn, and I genuinely enjoy it, but I don't have a lot to contribute. So I'd rather not talk just to talk. So it was. And
good. It was Halloween. It was Halloween last night, and
so he's a bit hungover.
And he dressed up as a platinum award because he has hopes and aspirations.
So my dumb-ass 11-year-old son decided at 6:30 last night, as we were beginning trick-or-treating, as his hat flew off the golf cart, to jump off of a moving golf cart and broke his arm. So I spent a good hour at the urgent care getting his arm put in a splint because he's fractured his radius. He fractured his radius. It's a compression fracture.
He's a normal kid, Lauren.
Oh, man.
That is a good life lesson. Those things, every childhood injury that help them in later life. So
yeah, it could have been his head. So we were very thankful. But literally, we were in and out of the urgent care in under an hour, and we came back to trick or treating. And so by that time, he'd shed his full costume, just had a mask on and a sling, and would go up to people, and they'd say, "Is your sling part of the costume?" To which he'd say, "No, about 90 minutes ago, I fell off a golf cart and fractured my arm." And so through sympathy, they gave him handfuls and handfuls of candy. So he made out like a bandit last night. He got way more candy than he's ever gotten before.
So, next year sure this wasn't part of the plan all along?
Exactly.
Maybe so. Maybe he's a genius. He's
Very
willing to put his
clever.
body on the line for candy. So I don't blame him.
Well,
But
Stuart, I've always wondered how they celebrate Halloween in New Guinea, so I appreciate the education.
No, it's New Zealand. He's from
New Zealand.
Or New Caledonia. I'm sorry.
Barbuda. It's Barbuda, guys. Come on. You're so insensitive.
Mr. Stewart, the soon-to-be platinum award-winning podcast. Where can they find the soon-to-be winning platinum podcast?
The Old Adrian award-winning podcast can be found at fueltravel.com/podcast, or just search for Hotel Marketing Podcast anywhere you want to, and you'll probably find it. So, yeah. And the mothership, if you want to learn about fuel, is fueltravel.com. You've got all the information you can want there. Oh, and we just added a download section. So if you go to fueltravel.com/downloads, you can get all of our past, because we do travel studies and a technology study, and we've done some white papers and whatnot. So all of those now aggregated under fueltravel.com/downloads.
Excellent. Yeah. By the way, kudos on your graphic. podcast now. Great move.
Wait till you hear. Stuart and I had a little jam session earlier in the week about him introducing a soundboard to introduce clips.
Oh, tell him the clip that we're going to record from you. It's awesome.
I built a better mousetrap. We're going to talk about new innovations and.
We're going to have a segment on the show, and it's going to be Ed's voice saying that. I built a better mousetrap.
So, Mr. Ed, where can they find you and everything about Flip2?
Well, if you want to learn about Flip2, fortunately, and thank you, Stuart, you can generally hear a lot about us on the Fuel podcast. That's how quite a few people learn about us. You can go to flip.to, social media, Flip2. You can learn about me on social media, Edward St. Onge. I have now separated my college football persona from my professional, so you don't have to be barraged with that.
UCF lost the game? Is that what happened?
No, actually,
exactly.
I did it last season.
Okay.
Yeah, last season I separated it because I realized it was time. Because I post way more college football than I do Flip2. But yes, so you can learn about me on social media, Edward St. Onge, and Mr. Lauren Gray. If people want to learn about you and all the new and interesting things you try.
Don't go to Instagram and look at Lauren Gray, that's for sure, because she looks a lot better than I do. You can currently still go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live for this and all previous 220 episodes. For now, we are going to be changing it to its own separate website soon enough.
With a longer URL.
Well, no, yeah, so it's going to have to be a long string URL. No. But anyway, for everything else, you can find it Facebook and YouTube and simulcast. And this is going to get posted on Instagram TV. We actually had an audience on Instagram TV. I was surprised since Stuart is such not a fan of Instagram TV.
It was probably Jennifer Aniston now that she's on Instagram. That's probably who was watching.
That's probably what it is. Or they must have thought it was the other Lauren Gray on Instagram and they scurried over thinking they're going to see a video of this 17-year-old music sensation, and they saw us, and maybe that's the last audience we'll have. Who knows? No, actually, I'm attributing it to Lily. We had what looked like our largest audience because of breaking LinkedIn last week. I don't think I told you, Lily, but because we simulcast on so many LinkedIns, I got a nasty gram from LinkedIn saying that's not what you use.
And rightly so for the integrity of the LinkedIn platform, I have to say. So.
They said, "I'm sorry, you followed the rules, but not the intent." I guess no, they slapped me on that, but they didn't take away my live streaming beta, so I just had to confine it to a single platform this time. But anyway, thank you all so very, very much, Lily. Welcome to the gang, and sorry, Holly, we ran out of time for you to join us this week, but we hope that you can join us.
Holly's in the green room. Yep.
Holly's in the green room.
Hanging out with Valen. Sorry, Valen. We didn't get to
Valen, sorry about that too. Yeah, Dan Waxman. Yeah. Madeline. Sorry, can't get you all. Anyways, thank you all until next week to show 222. Lily, we know we won't see you, and I know Tim, we won't see you. So hopefully we'll see the rest of the gang.
I'll be missing too next week. Sorry, so it might just be you. Jeez,
I'm going to be talking to myself. You're going to leave me with Robert. You know how those conversations go.
It gets weird. It gets weird.
We're going for a deep dive.
Deep dive. Next week. Rabbit hole. All right.
Into the weeds. Yeah. Into the rabbit hole, under the weeds. Yeah. So.
Thank you, Alice. All right. Goodbye, everyone. 11:30 Eastern next week.